Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week we're back on the bus bunk bed and hopefully making a start. See you in a minute. Now, just before we actually get doing anything in anger, a couple of things I need to just have a quick chat through. Slight changes happening. 2.5 years in, I originally started doing videos the small shed on a Friday, and soon after I got into doing the Saturday videos, which was what I now call the random stuff. It's the bits for other people, the bits at many sheds, the bits in the garden, bits in the garage, bits on the house. What's happened recently, of course, is that with pallet wood cars, mezzanine floors, work in the garden, work in the garage, the car in the garage, I've actually got far more stuff going on the effectively what would be the Saturday channel than stuff in the actual shed itself. And even anything I'm doing in the shed is very often like the air conditioning cover. It's probably arguable whether it should be on a Saturday video or because it's got to go down to somebody else's house down in Weston. So I'm sort of slightly realigning things and rejigging them a bit and changing my own mental rules slightly. Anything now that is loosely speaking woodwork related is probably fair game to be a small shed video, even though it's not probably being built in the shed, and the bus bunk is a typical example of that. I mean, there's no way I can build it in here, but if I had got a big enough shed it would have been built in here. So I'm pulling that over onto the Friday channel. There'll be one or two things like that that might seem slightly odd in where they are, but it's purely to balance the amount of work I'm doing. I've got that much going on with stuff that is nothing to do with the small shed, and I don't want to start a small garage, a small car, a small garden thread or channel. So I'm just going to try and keep anything that's loosely speaking woodworking and making stuff in the shed on the Friday videos, and the rest of it will go out on the Saturdays. So if it's a little bit haphazard, sorry. Second thing is I've also got a load of other bits and pieces. Things like the guitar build, I can see from the analytics I get from Google, YouTube, that they are not anything like as popular as a lot of the other things. People would rather see me fall off a ladder or electrocute myself, I think, than actually doing anything craft related. So I shall continue and finish off the guitar build on this, because it's my channel, my rules, and I don't really worry too much about ratings or view time, if you like. But it does mean that if I want to do any more guitar work, I won't subject people to that when that one's finished. Same with Hetty. Whilst people might be interested in seeing the car and a little bit about it, I'm not entirely certain that people are going to want to watch 2 hours of me stripping down a Honda engine. So that leaves me with a sort of dilemma on that. And I've also been working for 6 months now. I've got 7 days done of our holiday videos in New Zealand that I want to actually get up onto YouTube purely for personal consumption, if you like, for myself and family to be able to watch what we've done. So I will probably start and put anything like that out midweek, totally at random though, without any sort of fixed, it won't be every week or anything. So there may be some odd things coming out midweeks, and again, same principle as everything else. If you don't like it, don't watch, but it will be there in the future probably. Anyway, let's get on with this. I've got some timber, I hope, arriving this morning for the bus bunk. It's sheets of 8 by 4 3/4 MDF, and so I really need somewhere to work on them. They won't come in the shed. At the moment they won't go in the garage. I'm probably going to be working on it either out the front under cover or in the house maybe, so we need something to support it while I at least mark it out and get it ready for being cut out. So that's the first order of the day. We're going to make ourselves a temporary bench. Now, one of the things that's held up this whole project was the first lockdown. It meant that not only couldn't you get out to go and pick up materials, but most of the material suppliers were either shut or dealing mainly with trade and that busy that you couldn't get anything done. My original intentions were to go to somewhere like B&Q, one of the big box stores, and get the panels cut, because I knew that they were going to be very difficult for me to handle on my own. But when nothing happened, I waited until first lockdown finished, went down to one of my local timber merchants, and even then they weren't cutting timber, so that got put back. And it was only just before the second lockdown came along that I managed to get the order done online for home delivery for it. So that was the first thing that I'd been able to get done. That was the first step, that other than just drawing the thing out, to actually get some work done. So I've ordered and received 6 sheets of ply and of MDF 18mm thick, and as I was to find out, I was quite right in getting them delivered. I think there's no way in the world I think I'd have managed to get them on the roof of the car. The workbench I've made up out of bits of CLS I've got lying around, and 2 very old and very poorly Stanley trestles that I'd used out in the garden a couple of years ago when I was painting stuff for the shed. They're getting a bit tired now, but if you brace them up with a couple of clamps, it produces a reasonably good work surface for you, and it just shows that you don't really need big shed facilities to actually get some projects done. Although I'm under the cover of the front of the garage, it wasn't actually that necessary. I've not actually been working there outside when it's been anything other than sunny and reasonably bright. It's been a bit cold once or twice, but I couldn't work when it was raining anyway, because the tail end was sticking out into the rain anyway. So it is a sort of a viable option if you've got nowhere else to go. And I've just built this little, little work table up, which gives me a means to get it all drawn up and marked out. First thing I've done is to establish the wheelbase of the thing and drill the 2 wheel centres. That's for 2 things. Firstly, it's to get the router jig working to cut the wheels out, or the bottom part of the wheels anyway. But more importantly, it's going to provide a registration point when I start to do the other side, which will need to be pretty much the same silhouette, except where round by the driver's side, where there's a cab on one side and not on the other, and the windows are different on the other side, but the main outline will be the same, and I want to just be able to stick a screwdriver through the 2 wheel centres, lock them all together and get it done that way. And that's the first part all drawn up now, ready. Right, now having marked the 2 sides out, I'm going to just start and do a rough cut to get most of the waste wood out, because these things are 35 kilograms and not that easy to handle. So if I take that chunk out the middle, the back door, the front window, the bottom, and the strip off the top, we should take probably at least 10 kilograms out of that, which will make it much more easy for me to handle. And then we'll come back and tidy all the proper edges up with the trim router to get a decent finish on them. So then it was back to the same problem, trying to get these things up onto the temporary bench. I've found, certainly for moving them around, the gripper that I was put onto by Leo from Hand I Craft, the guy with one arm out of use, which was part of all that one arm challenge we did some months ago now. He put me onto the gripper that enables you to literally just put it onto your shoulder almost and lift in the middle and get the sheets moved around, but getting them up onto the top was still a problem, and once again made me pretty much in awe of what he can achieve with one hand if you can move these things around, because I'm struggling with two. Use the track saw to just trim the edge down to the right height. It's probably the first time I've actually used it with its both rails fully extended, but it soon gets a decent edge. And then I've just started working with the jigsaw to get roughly cut out within a few millimeters of the edge, and that will then be tidied up later on with a router to get a straight clean edge, or as straight and as clean as I can. It's not perfect what I've done, but it's certainly an awful lot better than just cutting it out with a jigsaw and trying to smooth it from that. But this was really just getting the weight out of the panels so that they were much easier to handle, and certainly taking the back deck and the window out on the side has made it so that that side panel is easily manageable. There's a fair bit of fancy cutting out round the bottom that in hindsight has been pointless. I was originally going to put slide out trays in the underneath to access underneath the bed, but decided not to, and we'll probably access it from, if we need to, from just below the mattress by moving the slats. But again, it was taking weight out that wasn't needed, so it's all covered up. This whole side gets another layer of MDF applied to it, bolted to it later on. But these are just the inner sides that are used to form the basic structure. It's probably the most use the little Bosch jigsaw's had as well in its life, but it's proving to be a useful tool. It's good to have the variable speed control on it, that you can just slow it down as and when you need to. But you can see from me already I'm just getting covered in dust from this whole affair, and when we get into routing it just becomes a whole new ball game. It's made the entire house and surroundings a bit like being on a beach, because the dust is just like sand almost. But that's got the one side pretty much cut out, and it's ready to move on to the second. Same thing again, rinse and repeat, mark it out, again starting with the two wheel centres, and I think I drilled one of them so that I could put the marker peg through from the other bus bunk side, and then that meant I could drill the second hole and make sure they registered every time then from then on. And that's almost as far as I'd got. It had taken 2 or 3 days to get this far at least, if not more, but there's an awful lot of drawing out and planning at this stage that will pay off hopefully a lot later on when we get on to finishing the other parts, because these will form the templates as well for the other parts, for the cutouts and the like. So that's got the two main sides, the inner parts at least, pretty much prepared, ready to start routering and get them to proper exact sizes. As I mentioned earlier, it's taken a few days to get that far. It is going to take quite a while. I'm already finding, because I'm a lot further into this than the videos are, that there's an awful lot of work involved in this, and you can see where the cost comes in. Even though they're using CNC machines, there's an awful lot of thinking and getting it right. I hope it was of interest. We'll rejoin the bus bunk a bit later on in the future and see how we're getting on with it, but hopefully in the next time we'll be doing something different, and I'll see you then. Bye!